I made a video a couple of weeks ago praising the Nets' new additions in Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, who'd both taken leaps from what we'd seen from them in Phoenix. It feels as if Cam Johnson has kind of returned to normal, but Bridges just keeps getting better and better and better as time goes along with Brooklyn. With his performance last night, Bridges now has 6 30-point games in his 12 games with the Brooklyn Nets. The team had struggled out of the gate after the KD trade, but now has won 4 of their last 5, with the only loss coming in a 5-point loss to the Milwaukee Bucks. And the team's resurgence can be credited heavily to Bridges, with him scoring over 30 points in each of those wins. He's doing it on nearly 50-50-90 splits too. He's been absolutely absurd. He's not forcing up shots either. He is showing a great shot selection within the flow of the offense and performing at a ridiculous level. Early on with the Nets, it looked as if Bridges had all-star upside, but now it seems as if he's trending towards superstardom. Brooklyn may have found their number one going forward. To truly understand how unstoppable Bridges has been and how good he is becoming, let's take a look at his run with Brooklyn so far. Before we get into the wild ascension of Mikal Bridges, if you enjoy my content and have watched a few videos of mine, think about subscribing. 96% of my viewers are actually not subscribed, so if you watched me before and enjoy the content, drop a sub and comment down below. It really helps the channel. Before we get into Bridges, I want to mention a phenomenon that's happening across the league that he's now falling into. This season, more so than any I've ever seen, we've had players change teams and dramatically increase their level of play. There are 3 major examples of this, with Bridges now becoming the third. After being an average starter for the first 5 years of his career, Lauri Markkanen became a star in his first season with the Utah Jazz this year, even starting in the 2023 All-Star Game. He has raised his scoring from 15 points per game with the Cavs in 2022 all the way to over 25 points per game with the Jazz this season. Then we have a similar case with first-year Knicks point guard Jalen Brunson. He spent the first 4 years of his career in Dallas, rising from a second-round pick to a rotational player to a starter. He put up about 16 points per game in his last season with the Mavs, but is putting up around 24 points per game with the Knicks this season, and about 29 points per game since we hit January 1st. He has a good chance to make an All-NBA team in what'll be only his second season as a full-time starter. And now we're seeing a similar jump from Bridges, who was a very important starter on a great team in Phoenix. However, he wasn't a star, at least offensively. He averaged 14 points per game with the Suns in 2022, and while that was slightly higher this year for the Suns at 17, his jump to 26 points per game with the Nets so far is still a very substantial one. Now you may be thinking to yourself, well, this is unusual and pretty cool, but why are you telling me this? I detailed what we've seen from Lauri and Brunson to show you that what we're seeing from Mikal Bridges likely isn't some mirage. It's a real jump towards stardom that we've already seen twice this season with players granted more opportunity. It also highlights that not all great players are stars right away, so even though Bridges is 26, that doesn't mean he can't take a star leap. Markkanen just made his first All-Star team at 25 years old, and Brunson is 26 as well. With all those similarities out of the way, let's hone in on Bridges. He's always been an elite defender, even finishing second in Defensive Player of the Year voting last season. His lockdown perimeter defense was a large reason why the Suns were so elite last regular season. The tone he sets on that end can really change a defense and grant you more offensive opportunities due to his steals and deflections. However, he wasn't really seen as a player that could become elite on both ends of the floor, but boy is he proving those people wrong. We saw some glimpses in Phoenix, with Bridges averaging around 23 points per game in his last month there, but he has been otherworldly in Brooklyn. He's averaged 26 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal per game since donning the Nets uniform. But that doesn't tell the full story, as he has continued to ascend and ascend as time goes on. Excluding the Milwaukee game where he only played 12 minutes, he's putting up 34 points per game over his last 4 games, all of which resulted in Nets victories. When many players see a jump in usage, we see somewhat of a dip or decline in their efficiency, as they're not used to getting that amount of shots and defensive attention. However, Bridges has actually seen a spike, shooting 51% from the field, 49% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line in his first 12 games with Brooklyn. He's showing a surprisingly deep offensive bag as well. He's gone viral on the internet for his 3-point celebration, and he is hitting well from downtown. However, he's not exactly perimeter-centric offensively. He's taking about 5.5 threes per game, which is a decent amount, but it's not the level of volume we see from the top-end shooters and scorers. About 12 of his 17 attempts per game are coming from inside the arc, with a nice mixture of smooth mid-range pull-ups and finishes at the rim. He's been extremely difficult to stop, and he's not exactly getting a ton of help either. Over his time with the team, we're seeing Dinwiddie put up 18 points per game, and his trade mate Cam Johnson putting up 17. But then we see a drop all the way to 11.5 with Cam Thomas, whose minutes have been slashed as of late. The team doesn't have a ton of offensive options, so a ton of responsibility falls upon Bridges' shoulders, but he's handled it gracefully, playing at an elite level even though he's seeing a volume and level of defensive attention he's never gotten at the NBA level. He's not just good, Bridges is becoming a superstar. For most of his career, Mikal Bridges has been considered a defensive specialist, and he has always been elite on that end of the floor. However, since being traded to Brooklyn in the deal for Kevin Durant, we've seen an evolution from him on the offensive end. He's averaging 26 points per game with the Nets, and 34 points per game in his last 4 full ones. He capped that off with a 34-point, 6-rebound performance in a 1-point overtime victory over the Minnesota Timberwolves last night. He ended up playing 47 total minutes, and the team needed every one of those to secure the victory. He's not Kevin Durant, but has been about as close to that level of production as you could reasonably expect anyone to give you. And he hasn't stopped improving. He seems to get better with each passing game, and he doesn't just have all-star upside, he looks like a potentially legitimate superstar. A very efficient one at that. Many thought the Nets might fall out of the playoffs altogether after the KD deal, but with how Bridges is playing right now, they're a team nobody would want to catch in the first round. Thanks for watching. I'm Herm. Have a good one.